All right, we got another patron request here, this time for Ravenous. This will be the Western horror double feature with Bone Tomahawk up next. I haven't gotten to watch that one. I've been quite busy as of late, and I'm sneaking this one in. So this one stars Guy Pearce, and this has definitely become a cult classic. There's no doubt about it. And for good reason. You know, it had been a little while since I had seen this. I've seen this twice. I saw this one time, probably close-ish to when it came out. And I don't know what my thoughts were on it at the time, but I know that they didn't leave a huge impression on me. But then the second time I went back and I was like, oh, this movie's pretty crazy. Which then kind of re-hyped it in a weird way, because then when I went back and watched it this time, I didn't think this was as crazy as I had thought on my second view. So movies really are just up to the last viewing. No matter how many times you've watched a movie, your opinion really only seems to matter on the film for yourself for the last time you watched it, which is an interesting thing that happens with movies. And I can watch a movie 30 times and feel different about it every time. And it's the last viewing that I'm, of course, going to have the opinion held of. So, yeah, that's a weird thing. Is everybody else like that too? I would assume they are, but maybe not. So we start the movie with Guy Pearce's character getting accommodations and accolades and whatnot for his war hero efforts, but this is not really what ended up happening. And you know, they're doing it to kind of save face. They want positive publicity currently during this war, and so they're not really saying what's happening. And then they get the truth out of him. And the truth is that he was, you know, quote unquote, a coward. Once the fighting began, he couldn't do it. He froze, and then he snuck in, played dead, and they popped him up on a like a wagon of a bunch of dead bodies, and brought him behind enemy lines, and he was able to capture the leaders of this like fort, because he was able to get in like a Trojan horse out of his cowardice. And there's an interesting thing that happens in there, because, you know, my memory of this movie was just pure cannibalism, pure you know, people who had lost their minds, started eating each other, very you know, Donner Party or Alfred Packard, or you know, whatever. And that is, you know, there's another element to this movie which I completely forgot about for some reason, but there is a full-on supernatural element to this, which is they're Wendigos. They never change, they never morph into anything. They look human the whole time, and that's probably why I forgot about it. But he tastes human blood, which is what gives him strength and which gives him courage, and that's why he's able to jump up and capture these people. That gets him the medal and whatnot. And then later in the movie, when our other main character, Robert Carlyle's character, comes in here, he's fully aware of like what's going on. And then you have the Native American characters that are like talking about the Wendigo, and they sustain injuries that should kill them. Like, without a doubt, they will die. And because they eat human flesh, those wounds heal completely without trace. Because the one guy, Carlyle's character, he gets shot in the arm, and then when he's like, you know, has to prove his story is incorrect, he's like, I shot him, there should be a wound. He goes and he reveals his shoulder, and there's nothing there, no remnants of anything had ever happened to him. So yeah, for some reason I've completely forgot that aspect of the movie. I just thought it was people had lost their minds and were ravenously eating each other, but that is not the case here at all. So once again, a movie is only as good as your last watch of it. So I'm definitely glad I rewatched this, because now I actually remember what this movie is actually about. It's a good one. It's just for some reason, I don't know if there's an alternate cut to this movie, and the one I watched is not as graphic or as crazy, but this one just wasn't as insane. Still had its craziness to it, but I just remember it being kind of bonkers, and this movie just isn't that crazy. It has some moments though, for sure. We'll get there. So David Arquette always plays a really funny simpleton. He's been, obviously, Dewey is his big role in the Scream franchise, and he's a simple guy in that. That is questionably dumb. But then there's other movies that he's been in, plenty of them, where he kind of plays like the village idiot or just a very dumb guy. And that's like perfectly suited for him. I hate to typecast him. I'd have to try to see him in other roles where he's not that at all. I can't think of any off the top of my head. In fact, I can only think of a few David Arquette performances right now, like The Tripper and stuff like that. So I'm not uber familiar with his career, but I feel like he a lot of the times plays like a kind of a happy idiot. And he plays one in here where he's just kind of like stoned and laughing it up, chucking it up the whole time. And yeah, I just think he does that very well. So he was making me laugh a little bit with how zany and ridiculous he was. And when he gets like banished to the wall essentially from Game of Thrones, they're like, here, this is where all the rejects go. He gets there, and Jeffrey Jones' character is like, introducing him around and telling him about the people there, and he's like, oh, he kind of acts as our makeshift doctor. My recommendation, don't get sick. That actually got me pretty good. That would be terrifying, especially back then. Although modern medicine wasn't really a thing back then, and they could only do so much. But I'd rather take like an okay doctor than no doctor at all, or even worse, a bad doctor. A bad doctor could be even worse than no doctor, depending on, of course, the illness, the injury. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole motley crew of like merry band of idiots is good here. We've got a wide array of a cast of characters, but they don't really get a lot of time. I feel like each one of them makes their appearance, and there's like the soldier guy, and then there's the idiot, and then there's the Native American, and then there's the everyone kind of has their role, and it feels like they're gonna play off really well together, being that kind of odd couple. But we unfortunately don't get a lot of time. They get lured out by Carlisle's character to the cave, and then he kills most of them. And that's a shame. I do wish we could have got to spend more time in the fort with them, and kind of how they played off of each other, and just more screen time in general with those characters, because I think that there was more fun to be had there. And I would actually liked a lot if we would have had them be a part of it, and them try to eat each other and whatnot. But that's not what ended up happening, and it's not a bad thing. I just just for an alternate version of this movie, it would have been cool to see that as well. I still think the movie's quite good, but that would have been cool as well. And so Carlisle's found, he's brought in, he tells them this bullshit story of course, it all ends up being a ruse to get them out there so that he can eat all of them. And then you get, the story of the Wendigo and whatnot. And then, they get to the caves and people start getting killed. And Guy Pearce's character runs for the hills and he's there with the soldier guy. And Carlisle kind of pins them against a cliffside, and the one guy, the soldier guy, he ends up getting himself killed. I mean, he's thrown off the cliff, and then Guy Pearce, of course, he's not going to fight. He's got that cowardice in him. If he goes and John Rambo's himself, First Blood, throws himself off the cliff and lands in the tree branches that break his fall as he's coming down. Now, the question always becomes, is this even remotely possible? I know it's like a fantasy movie. We're dealing with Wendigos, and you don't have to think about logic too much. But I've seen it in enough films now where people are jumping through trees. I know that Rambo would have broken his ribs. All he does is he kind of like stitches up one of his ribs, and then he's fine for the rest of the movie. But I've broken ribs, and let me tell you, it's brutal. You can't even think. The pain is excruciating. It lasts forever. You can barely breathe. There's very little that they can do for it, other than like ice, heat, that kind of stuff. And of course, if it's really bad, they have to do surgery. But most oftentimes, it's just something that has to heal on its own. And you can't lay on it. You can't move around. You can't take in deep breaths. You can barely take in a regular breath. So Stallone's Rambo would not be fighting no war with broken ribs. They're brutal. And the fact that fighters like fight through them, where they get punched in the ribs and it breaks their ribs and they keep getting like, if someone even touched me where my rib was broken, I'd probably collapse to the ground. The pain is so insane. To be hit by someone who's like a trained fighter in that area, there's no way. I guess your brain would probably just shut off the pain to that area. Adrenaline would take over and you'd be fine. But yeah, I mean, I would think the same would be true here as well. Wherever he's hitting these branches, it's not like they're made of rubber. Like, if these branches are strong enough to break like a 150, 200-pound man's fall, they're also strong enough to break him. So if you jump from the cliff, looked like it was a few hundred feet. He's hitting branches all the way down. He would be broken. His body would be broken. He would have broken legs, broken arm, broken neck, whatever. So do I think you could survive landing in a tree like that, breaking? Yes, but you would be way more injured. But this is the typical thing, right? Like in movies, people get in car crashes and they just jump right on out, right? I was in a violent car accident when I was 18, and there was no way I was walking away from that. My leg was broken. My whole face was swollen. My freaking I bruised my lungs. I was coughing up blood like crazy. I was knocked out cold and have sustained head injury for so many years now. It screwed up my ability for balance and all sorts of things. Gave me PTSD really terribly. So yeah, I just don't feel like you're falling through a tree like this and coming out of it like okay enough to just be like, all right, like time to get up and get on out of here. Like, I know he hides next to the guy's body for a little while and he kind of crawls his way back, and that's a little bit more believable. I'll take this over Rambo, who just kind of stitches himself up. And no fucking way. No way. Because we see it in the movie in First Blood. He literally lands on the branch on his side. It screams out in pain. It's like, that is 100% a broken rib. Anyway. So, yeah, Carlisle's character can kind of smell him for a second. He doesn't ultimately lead to him with it, but he does smell him. Now, this is in the 1800s, and it is possible. I mean, somebody jumps like that. Actually, to be fair, the soldier guy, typically when we die, we defecate. And so he probably would have shit himself. And he's laying right next to him, and he's smelling human poop. That might be what he's smelling. I don't think that's what the movie's implying. I think that he's a monster, right? He's like a Wendigo, and he can smell. But I guess it is possible that both of them shit themselves. I probably would if I jumped off a cliff to save my life. But yeah, was he smelling poop? Is that what that was? Or was he smelling something else? We already talked about the shoulder scene, but of course this makes him look like an absolute lunatic, so they arrest him, and they're holding him accountable for the murders. And yeah, I mean, when Carlisle tells the story, he says that he was on his deathbed when this happened with tuberculosis, and he ate a person, and his tuberculosis went away. Now the question becomes, would you eat a human to cure your disease? My answer is yes. But would I kill someone to eat them? No. So the morgue is filled with people. There's people that die every day. You're never like farther away from a dead body than maybe 20 miles. Like, I probably have dead bodies sitting all around me right now that are fresh. I would definitely eat a person. Like, I'd cut me off like a steak of their body. If I had like a horrible disease like cancer or something like that, and it was like deadly, and it was like, here's your only cure, it's eating this person, they're already dead, yeah, no problem. I mean, it would suck, but I wouldn't want to do it. I don't want to be like yummy, but yeah, I would eat someone to cure my sickness like that. Hell yeah. But I wouldn't murder somebody to eat them. Absolutely not. The thing, like, I guess he continues to keep eating people because he becomes ravenous and nothing else can satiate him and whatnot, but he doesn't seem to be needing to cure anything, unless I miss something where, like, you have to continue to keep eating people, and if you don't, like, you'll diminish in power and all of the wounds that you had will come back, like his tuberculosis, or I don't know if a wound would it open back up. I don't see how that would be a thing, but you just become weaker, and once you've had a taste, you have to have it again, right? Like a vampire. I mean, that's basically what they are in this movie. So I don't know. Yeah, but once again, I mean, if it's just if I had to, like, you know, do my daily dose of human meat every month to stay healthy, and it was off of people who had already died, yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, maybe some of you would be like, nope, I have a line, and that's totally fine. But no, I'd be fine with it. I'd be totally fine with it. I want to live. And then, Carlisle also admits that the guy who told him about the cure, who was like a native guy, he ate him. That's the guy he ate to prove that he was right. That's fucked up. The guy who gives you the information to save your life is the guy you eat. That's really messed up. I was like, okay, you're just straight up a villain. Like, he is, obviously. But it's like, there is no redeeming qualities to you at all. Not even in the beginning, right? This isn't like post-ravenous desire, right? Before, when that guy told him, he's just a regular dude that was dying of tuberculosis. And he could have killed and ate anybody. And he chose to kill the guy who was just trying to help him out. It was like, hey, I'm telling you this story so that you can survive. Like, I'm telling you this story as a courtesy. And what do I get for my efforts? Eaten. Yeah, this guy's just a straight up villain. Even before he becomes a Wendigo. Period. So I don't think that the curse, the Wendigo curse or whatever, the ravenous desires somehow, tainted him. Right? They didn't make him some terrible person. He already was, without question. And then, yeah, we talked about all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, Guy Pearce's character, like fighting off the urge to feed on people's blood and whatever. I mean, this is very, very much very close to a vampire movie, and that's probably the closest thing it resembles. I'm not super familiar with Wendigo lore. It's not something I know. It's like humans who crave flesh of other humans. Um, I'm not familiar with the lore. I don't feel like there's enough Wendigo movies for me to really brush up on it. Not that movies are always accurate, but I mean we are talking about fantasy here, and I feel like they always can change whatever they want it to be to suit their film, and people are just making it up regardless. And then so then Jeffrey Jones' character kind of comes out of nowhere. He's the one who was killing people and kind of framing them because he ended up surviving the attack in the caves. And his kind of like redemption arc or whatever, I don't know. It feels a bit forced in my opinion, where he's totally fine. I guess it's kind of cowardice. So maybe I'm being a little too hard on it. But he seems like he's totally on board with it 1 minute, and then as soon as Pierce pushes back and Carlisle's character is out of the room, he's like, "All right, take the knife and kill me." Like, I'm done. I can't continue to keep doing this. But like 5 minutes earlier, it seemed like he was hunky dory, totally on board, totally into it. Now that might just be an act for him, and he wants to live. He's too much of a coward to do it himself. Coward. I keep using that word like in quotations because anybody who doesn't want to fight in a war, I don't think they're a coward. Anybody who doesn't want to kill themselves because their predicament is so bad that they don't want to live anymore, I don't think is a coward. So I use this, kind of with a grain of salt, because I just that's not really what I mean. But I don't know what other word to use. But regardless, yeah, it's so quick. It's so out of nowhere. It feels like he's his little minion and he's completely on board. And then all of a sudden he's just like, okay, just kill me. I don't know. Anybody else feel that way with this one? Because that was one area where I was like, that doesn't make sense. And then, yeah, I mean, in order for Guy Pearce's character to survive, he does have to end up eating meat to prevent himself from bleeding out. That stuff must act quick. When you eat human flesh, it must act fast because he's bleeding out profusely. Like, he's got minutes to live at best, seconds even. And he starts eating the stew as it's like bubbling up, and there's so much coming out of him that I'm like, dude, eating that flesh must start healing you instantaneously. You become Wolverine within seconds. So, yeah, that's crazy how fast. Because I was looking at the wound, being like, how is he even going to survive? Even if he eats this meat, isn't it too late? Wouldn't it take a little while? Guess not. And then so Carlisle and him end up getting in their big fight, and he tricks him into like this big bear trap, which gets them both. And then he's like, if you die first, I'm totally gonna eat you, which you would think he would just try to start eating him right then and there. Like, why isn't he kind of chomping at him in that moment? Like, I'm gonna eat you right now. You're literally on top of me. Like, all right. And there should have been like a cannibal fight where they were like both trying to eat each other and gnaw at each other to kill each other and to consume one another. I know ultimately Guy Pearce just gives up and wants to die with him, and he's like, fights off the urge to live and whatnot. So, but then the wife of the native who gets killed, I don't really understand her character that well. Like, she's blaming Guy Pearce, but she's also a believer from what I can tell of the Wendigo stuff, and he's telling the story that she would believe, and she doesn't seem to. Maybe because she just seems to think that he is, but his story kind of checks out because she was there. I don't know. I don't really. She wasn't there when the murder went down, but I just feel like she would be the one to believe him. And then when she sees them kind of dead together, I guess she's just like, well, it was either him or him. So either way, I got my vengeance. I'm out of here. Right? But she also, I feel like, leaves before they're fully dead, and one of them could eat the other one and end up surviving. So I feel like she should have just killed them both, because she is kind of looking for vengeance. But then, instead of telling those guys nothing, she just like looks in. She has this big thing where she wants vengeance for her husband's death, but then nothing comes of it really. And then she just walks in on them having laid on top of each other. I don't know. That all just felt kind of anticlimactic for me. It didn't really amount to much, almost like it was unnecessary. So, I don't know, another weird part. But, yeah. So, as I said, I think she gets her vengeance either way, because he's like, it was him. And it was like, no, it was him. And it was like, well, you're both dead. So, but I guess I'm good. It's one of you. It's one of you. I don't know which, but whatever. You're both dead, so I'm good. But yeah, I thought that there was more carnage. I thought there was more cannibalism. I thought that there was more death and gore and crazy insanity. And this movie is a little more straightforward than I thought it was. Which is fine. It's still a good movie. It's still unique. But, yeah. I maybe there is a different cut of this movie. Or not. I don't know. Let me know. But that's pretty much it. I had a good time. And I need to brush up, or not even brush up, just educate myself outright on Wendigo and other creatures like it. There's these kind of random creatures that pop up in horror movies that I know are a thing, like skinwalkers, which are kind of like werewolves, sort of. But I need to look into them more, like really study the lore a bit more in depth. Because when these kinds of creatures are brought up, unless it's like a vampire or a zombie or something like that, a lot of the times I'm kind of like, I'm unsure of what the actual lore is to these things. So anyway, yeah, good time. And let me know. See you in the comments. Adios.